concern about the cost of education in the small school districts in the state of Wisconsin. First of all, I want to say I know how important these school districts are to these small communities. But right now, it's very expensive. Spooner just defeated a referendum, an excess levy referendum, and that's putting a tremendous strain on their budget. Shell Lake, I think their referendum expires at the end of the next school year. They'll probably have to come back in a few months. The cost of education in Shell Lake now is over $12,000 per student. Let me use 3 communities as an example where I think there could be some consolidation of resources. It's Clear Lake, Turtle Lake, and what's the other one? Clayton, Whistler. They're within like 15 miles of each other. They all have their own superintendents. They all have their own athletic programs. They all have their own high school principals, and they're within 15 miles of each other. If there was some way to consolidate those resources, you could reduce costs significantly. Now, having said that, the only way that's going to happen is that the state provides some incentives to these communities to do that. In other words, if you're going to have a transition where there is going to be mandated or whatever kind of consolidation, you have to provide extra dollars per pupil unit to those districts during that transition so they can make that transition. So I'm very concerned about that. Wisconsin has so many small units of government that is just killing the state. And they need more consolidation of resources, and they can't continue on the way it is.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is a universal problem. Where it came from is, as long as the taxpayers had the money and the taxpayers were paying the money, these smaller school districts could continue on. And like I said, it ends up in critical mass where you get up to that $12,000, $13,000 a student, it just becomes unsustainable. You have the same thing with municipalities, fire departments, police. You got the same thing with churches. My God, I go to a tiny little church out in the Blue Hills, and there's 43 families, and out of those 43 families, about 40 of them are widows and widowers, you know. And we want to keep our church. It's all about turf wars generally. And we want to keep our little church, and we're financially stable, but, you know, there's 2 or 3 of them around us that aren't. We all want to have our own church. We all want to have our own priest. Rice Lake Fire Department used to serve, and I was on that department for 20-some years. We serviced a huge area around Rice Lake. And Hagen decided they wanted to have a fire department. Birchwood, Tumbo. All of a sudden, these little tiny fire departments started popping up. They got to buy $200,000-$300,000 trucks, and they got to this thing. Consolidation is going to be the buzzword for the time to come here.
I see 2 of my neighbors from the lake here today, and they know what's happening to taxes, the property taxes in Shell Lake. And the problem with that is, as the taxes go up, the property values go down. And you're killing the base.
Absolutely.
The property tax base.
Absolutely. And, you know, being my real estate background for the last 21 years, people said, you know, when we had a job offer and we're thinking about coming here, but my God, your taxes are high. You know, you've got a good professional that has a chance to take a job in Wisconsin or in Missouri. In Wisconsin, a $200,000 home has an $8,000 tax bill, and in Missouri, a $200,000 home has a $1,200 tax bill. Where are they going to go? You know, I mean, it's like a wage increase or a wage decrease depending on what state you go to. Just pure property. I've sat across the table from people that have a home on a lake and sit there and literally cry because they have to sell their home on the lake, which they bought in the 60s or 50s, and their intent was to retire there, and now all of a sudden they're in their 60, 65 years old, they're retiring, and they want to go out to the lake, and they can't afford the taxes. Can't tell you how many times I said, we pay $400, $500, $600 a month in taxes. We've never had that high of a house payment. And now we can't afford to stay in our own lake home. We have to move off the lake, and we've worked all our life to be able to do that. That's sad. That's sad. And taxing, we don't have a problem with taxes. Everybody says raise taxes, tax the rich, whatever. We don't have a taxing problem in this state. We don't have a taxing problem in this nation. We tax everybody, and we tax a lot. There's revenue, there's tons of revenue, but we spend too much. It's all about spending. We have to cut spending. Consolidation is absolutely, you're going to get into some tremendous turf wars. You know, you do it in the church, when the church is consolidated. Well, Chetek, Querhauser just consolidated. that went fairly smoothly. It wasn't easy, but it went fairly
I'm from
smoothly.
Minnesota, and I don't claim that Minnesota has all the answers, because they got their own problems. But
Yeah, because I got the mic.
the school I went to in northern Minnesota now has 3 communities servicing 1 school district. They were all separate before. My wife went to a school district that had, and now they have 3 communities consolidated into 1 school district. And if you look at the basketball scores on a Saturday in the wintertime in Minnesota, you'll see all kinds of acronyms for the various consolidated school districts. And that hasn't happened in Wisconsin yet.
It's going to. I mean, it's inevitable. It's inevitable. It's a function that's going to happen, or else. You're going to see it with like even some of your municipal services. You're going to see it with schools, especially nowadays with connections that we've got with the internet, transportation systems we've got. My goodness, every school district has buses lined up all over the place to bus kids 2 blocks. So if we have to bus them 10 miles or 5 miles instead of 2 blocks, so be it. And you're absolutely right, we're top heavy. Two problems with education is it's top heavy. Like I say, every little tiny school district, all our administration stuff, and also your formula, your school aid formulas and stuff like that needs some major overhauls.
And I guess we as citizens, especially on that type of issue, have done that to ourselves also. Like you said, the turf wars. So it wasn't too long ago, Spooner and Shell Lake, 7 miles apart, were each trying to build a new school at the same time. Shell Lake had a benefactor that gave them $1 gazillion to help them build their school. Spooner didn't. And I agree with you on the $34 million for a high school, but if people would have agreed to the first referendum, we would have got the same school for half the price because there were state aids. And everybody said no. We ended up paying twice as much because we needed a new school. And I guess my point is, there's points and holes to this, but I guess this is one thing that's been frustrating, and I got to get going. I work for the state, and I don't want to get into the whole collective bargaining. I don't really like unions. We're there for a good reason, and there still needs to be bargaining. Just for wages, as the governor wants to have done, is a bunch of baloney. If you want to go by that, we're never even, as a salary, never even going to keep up with the price of inflation, because we can't unless we have a special referendum. I don't want to get into that, but I guess I want to get into the overall budget thing, and I can't get into everything. It's so much stuff. But the little chunk of my agency, when all this stuff started happening, our group, our part of the big giant state agency, got a bunch of the most experienced guys together, and over a series of a bunch of meetings over about a year and a half, we looked at, hey, what is our mission, and how much are we spending right now to do it? Okay, we knew those 2 things. How should we do it differently? What should we be doing, and how we should be doing it? We got all that stuff out there. Okay, we got to cut 10%. Okay, and we prioritized what things we would have to quit doing or give up or do differently. 20%. And we had a list, and we were prepared. We also, perfect world if we had 10, 20% more, but that list was easy to do. For once for less. But I guess my point is, I have heard nothing about, to reduce the budget, talking about the individual state agencies looking from within. How can you do things different, better, cheaper? What shouldn't you be doing? You used to be able to, and I'm going to identify myself now, as a public landowner, come to the state and get forestry assistance on your property.
Get what?
Get forestry help from the state, not from a logger,
Okay.
or someone that's going to make a profit on it, and say, what you can do for wildlife and forestry. We used to do that all the time. We can't anymore. We don't, very rarely, because there's so many other things we're trying to do. The only people that get help quickly and efficiently are the people that are in the state tax law program. John Q. Public, that's paying his full taxes, it's really hard to be able to help them because our priorities are on the people that are getting the tax break, because there are certain mandates that we have to do for them.